Standby letter of credit, also called Sblc, is a bank guarantee with which the importer guarantees his supplier that his bank will take his place if he is deficient, provided that the exporter presents the requested documents as a proof of the existence of the claim. It is therefore a documentary guarantee paid on first demand, which aims at securing the performance of a contract, an obligation, or a flow of commercial transactions. The benefits. Firstly, for the seller, it guarantees that he will receive his payment, even if the buyer is no longer able to do so. Also, since this solution is only triggered in the event of the buyer's inability to pay, the buyer is not fully committed to the credit, unlike the documentary credit, which saves money. Thanks to the letter of credit, the upstream payment of large amounts is facilitated and secured. This solution is particularly interesting for companies that import from a supplier located in another country. Diagram of the implementation of the standby letter of credit, establishing the Sblc. First, negotiation of the contract. The seller and the buyer agree on the terms of the contract, the amount of the sale. The seller will then be the creditor of the sum of money and the buyer will be the debtor. Second, request for issuance of the standby letter of credit. The debtor, customer or buyer asks his bank to set up the standby letter of credit. Third, it is either a direct standby and the bank issues the letter of credit directly to the beneficiary, or it is an indirect standby and the issuing bank transmits the standby to the corresponding bank in the beneficiary's country. Fourth, notification or confirmation of the Sblc. If it is a direct standby, the corresponding bank notifies the beneficiary, i.e. the seller. If it is an indirect standby, the notifying or confirming bank notifies the beneficiary's bank. Activation of the Sblc in case of default. In the event of default, and in order to act on the Sblc, the seller shall provide the notifying bank with proof of the claim. For example, prove that an invoice is unpaid by simply presenting a written certificate mentioning the buyer's failure to meet its commitments or the non-payment. The notifying or confirming bank forwards these documents to the issuing bank, which checks them, and in case of validity of the documents, the issuing bank proceeds with the payment. It is obliged to do so even if its binding party raises a plea of non-performance, i.e. even if its client indicates to it that it is voluntarily that it does not proceed with the payment because its contracting party has not performed its own obligations. For example, the goods are defective. The seller is indemnified, now instructs the issuing bank to turn to its client for reimbursement. The different types of Sblc. There are many different types of Sblcs, the most common being those used in the context of international trade relations. The Sblcs can be used to protect the seller or the buyer. The most common one is certainly the one that protects the seller in case of non-payment by the buyer. Sblc in protection of the buyer, the Sblc of good execution, the Sblc for advance payment restitution, the Sblc's waiver of holdback, the commercial LLSC, most common, the Sblc submission. The advantages of the letter of credit in an international context. It is an effective tool for securing international trade commitments. The legal regime and the scope of the letter of credit are based on stable community and international rules that are recognized between the different states, which allows for intervention within a harmonized legal framework accepted by the countries of the contracting parties. The Sblc is a good alternative to the implementation of complex international contracts and classic international guarantees. It should be noted that each Sblc is limited in time. The end date of the commitment is therefore known, for example, 1 year. In 2 words, simple and efficient. 3 reasons to consider Sblc. It is autonomous, perfectly independent of the contract of commercial relationship between the seller and the buyer. It is payable on first demand. The beneficiary can demand payment upon presentation of the documents to the issuing bank. It is also irrevocable. It cannot be cancelled without the agreement of all the parties to the guarantee. How much do I need to have the benefit from this service? In principle, the issuer of a standby letter of credit, the applicant must have at least some fees to pay from 50,000 euros. The leverage can be effective. How to benefit from this service? You can contact us at any time. Who are we? Stantax, consultants and specialists with 20 years of experience in tax optimization, creation of offshore companies, professional bank accounts, and financial arrangements for investments.